Hello and welcome everyone to today's conversation on creating a coaching culture. We have a quick 30 minutes and lots of great stuff to cover. So very excited. Of course, the first thing I do want to let each and every one of you know is happy to take your questions. And many of you are familiar with us and you know that. Please type them into the question panel. And every once in a while, we get someone who's really brave. And if you raise your hand, I can actually unmute you and you can come on live and ask your question that way. So your choice, whatever works for you. This is about you and getting information that helps you with what you want to do. So moving into the conversation, we are talking about creating a coaching culture. So the first thing we're going to do is define coaching and coaching culture. And then we'll talk about the reasons for having a coaching culture. We'll discuss engaging the workforce and then move into supporting a coaching culture for the long term. And then, of course, review resources for you and take additional questions. So, knowing we've got that fast 30 minutes, let's dive in. And by the way, for some of you that have done these programs, we're going to have a little bit of fun today. We're primarily going to be using quotes to give us some insight and then have the conversation around that particular area. So, here we go. First off, definition of coaching. And of course, absolutely love this definition. It's awesome. It comes from the International Coach Federation, and the language says so much about what coaching really is and what it really means. So whether it's executive, career, business, life coaching, whatever type of coaching it is, strategic partnership. Check out that language, strategic partnership, because so often we think, okay, we're supposed to be the expert and have the answers. And if you're a consultant or a mentor, that is the case. In coaching, it's truly a partnership because ultimately the client is their own best expert. So our job as a coach, the definition goes on, is empower the client so they clarify their own goals for themselves, create their own action plans for themselves, move past obstacles, and achieve what the client chooses. Now, think about applying that in terms of creating a coaching culture in an organization. What are the challenges in organizations in terms of retaining talent, motivating their talent, their productivity, engagement, everything else? Well, it all goes back to what we've heard so many times. People don't leave their company, they leave their boss. And when you have management that is telling people what to do and how to do it, the people that are being told are disengaged. So when you take that approach of coaching and truly empower them in their role, it absolutely changes outcomes for the organization. So let's keep going. What exactly is a coaching culture? There are many definitions out there. It was actually so easy to get lost as I'm researching the different definitions in all of these different websites and ideas and that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun. Here's where we're going with it. A coaching culture utilizes a positive, proactive approach at all levels for empowering employees to the greatest extent possible. Okay, so think about what we're saying here. A positive approach. We tend to get hung up on the problems and get stuck and mired there. So we're really seeking that positive. We're seeking proactive. And what's the research behind that? Some of you have heard me talk about the conferences called Science of Coaching that are put on by the International Coach Federation. And to me, a huge, profound impact was seeing brain scans and the difference when people are using a positive approach versus a negative approach. The brain function is completely different. When negative, it shuts down. People are less able to think and make decisions and be effective. When you have a positive approach, brain activity increases, thinking, decision making, processing, etc. It all goes up. So that's incredibly significant in terms of the coaching culture. So we definitely want that positive approach. Proactive, well, that makes sense. We're all familiar with Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and talking about being proactive, initiating action. Yes. Now, here's our biggest challenge: empowering employees to the greatest extent possible. It's almost ironic. We think sometimes as managers, oh, well, my job is to tell them how to do what they're doing. Okay, wait a minute. If they're unsure how to do it and you're telling them that, you're creating a dependency, and ultimately, what is the reason for having them in the position? I mean, after all, they're there to do the job. And if we're constantly telling them how to do the job, they're not really doing it on their own. So empowering them makes a difference. And of course, from the other side of the coin, think about it. We've all been in the position of having a micromanager. How much did we love that, right? So truly empowering them. They're there because they're capable of doing the work. And the more we give them the space for doing it, the better job they're going to do. All right, so we've got our definitions down. Now let's move into what are the reasons for having a coaching culture? What do we want out of this? So coaching inspires people. It goes back to being positive and proactive. Think about people that inspire you. They're positive, they're proactive. Coaching engages people because when individuals are empowered to do what it is they do, they are truly engaged. And coaching motivates. When people own what they're doing and they figure out how they're doing it, they're truly motivated in terms of moving forward with it. So, a quote for inspiring. I love this one. People will exceed targets they set themselves. So if I'm the one telling you what the target is, it's an external motivator. And we're all familiar with the concept that external motivation gets a short-term result. It's when people are internally motivated that you get the long-term impact. So when you empower people to set the target themselves to determine their own objectives, they own it and they are inspired to follow through. Now, an additional piece of what we do as coaches is have the client fully engaged by describing the outcome they want so that it's very real to them and that inspires them to achieve it. Coaching engages. So here's our quote. I never cease to be amazed at the power of the coaching process to draw out the skills or talent, I love this, that was previously hidden within an individual and which invariably finds a way to solve a problem previously thought unsolvable. So go back to the idea of each person really being their own best expert. How many times do we say, okay, I know the answer, and we give it to someone else and it's not their answer, it's not going to work? When we really do empower them and engage them in figuring out their answer, they have the ability within. And the number one thing that holds most of us back is ourselves. So we're getting that barrier, that obstacle covered and truly empowering them. And they are engaged, and that moves them across that barrier and forward. Coaching motivates. Check out the quote. You get the best effort from others, not by lighting a fire beneath them, but by building a fire within. So back to the whole concept of that internal motivation. When we coach somebody, we're asking them about what they want, and in turn, we're asking them about what it means to them. How is this significant to you? And when they explore that and think about the meaning for themselves, it's building the fire within. And with that internal fire comes the internal drive, and it moves people forward. So now take these thoughts to an organizational level. If you have a company where we're used to, if you will, the old school of management or leadership, where it's basically a dictatorship. I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it. I'm the boss and that's what you're going to do. Yeah. How much do people want to stay there? Chances are you've seen the statistics. I've seen recently that 70 to 80% of people are actively looking for a different job. If you've got that much of your workforce wanting to be somewhere else, how involved are they when they are at work? So this is fascinating. It is so incredibly important that we truly engage them, that we involve them in what they're doing, in how they're doing it. So we empower them to make the choice. And when we do that, that level of engagement going up means productivity goes up, and it means the outcomes go up. So at a corporate level, it totally makes sense. Now let's move into the concept of, gee, how do we engage the workforce? And of course, the obvious answer is with the coaching. So let's go deeper than the obvious answer of coaching and say, okay, how do we truly engage the workforce? So one thing that coaching does is it invites people, invites them to fully participate and own what they're doing. It is an exploration. What are the opportunities? What are the barriers? How do you move past those barriers? And think about the application of group coaching. If you're creating a coaching culture, group coaching makes a ton of sense, because in addition to one person saying, okay, I'm working this whole coaching piece, you've got the whole group creating the environment of that coaching culture. So digging into each of these concepts. First off, this idea of coaching being inviting. Here's our quote. With all the information available today, I love this, the manager can no longer have all the answers. Totally unrealistic. Whereas in the coaching role, you are not expected to have all the answers. In a coaching role, you ask the questions, and then you rely on your staff who become the experts to provide the information. Well, put yourself in the place of that employee. If your manager is asking you, gee, what is the answer? How do we make this work? You're like, yay, this is great. You're engaged because you've been invited to have the input, to take charge of something, to demonstrate your ability and your expertise. That absolutely is inviting for all of us. Next, exploring. The Ivy Business Journal said executives and HR managers know coaching is the most potent tool for inducing lasting personal change. So what happens in that process is we explore. The coaches ask that person, okay, what are the opportunities? What do you want it to be? What's getting in the way? And how are you going to move past that? And then what's the strategy? You see, ultimately, the exploration process of the opportunities, the barriers, the strategies, and then ultimately defining of the actions, that's how you get the personal change, because that individual figures it out for themselves and they truly are their own best expert. And by going through the exploration process that's inherent to the coaching process, they get there. They create that lasting personal change. Next, let's talk about group coaching for a minute. Coaching in and of itself is a conversation, a dialogue, whereby the coach and the individual interact, check this out, in a dynamic exchange to achieve goals, enhance performance, and move the individual forward to greater success. So that idea of the individual coaching, that's exciting, that's powerful. Take that same concept and apply it with a group and say, okay, now in addition to the coach or manager coach, if you will, working to engage an individual to inspire them and explore with them, you're teaching and demonstrating by modeling that type of coaching within a group. And you're modeling for them, and they in turn are taking on that coaching approach with each other. Well, that's powerful. If you want to create a coaching culture, it's much bigger than any one person in the company. It's all of us in the company. So when the whole team is having the coaching conversation, modeling that behavior, developing that behavior, you're learning a new norm. So many of you have who are coaches, you know this about coaching, and you're doing group coaching. Particularly those of you that have done the Master Coach Program, you've learned all about the power of group coaching. And yes, it truly engages the workforce, and it does it on a much bigger level. So that's an exciting opportunity. All right, what else? Supporting a coaching culture for the long term. Of course, this is the big challenge. We have this idea, oh yeah, we want to create a coaching culture. All the companies are talking about it. This is the hottest thing since sliced bread. Everybody's going there. Okay, how do we really do it? What does it take so that if we're going to put the effort into creating this type of a culture, how do we maintain it over the long term? So let's start that part of the conversation. It is much bigger than we're going to cover here. Keep going with this. All right, first off, it truly is going to involve people at all levels in the organization. You see, bottom line, if the top levels of leadership are different, they're not involved in the coaching or the coaching culture, how long is it going to last? That's a pretty tough one. So it is a trickle-down effect. That means in many organizations doing the research on the return on investment for coaching, on the impact of a coaching culture, so that you have that buy-in. And then, of course, one of our biggest challenges is the training at that executive level so that they themselves are modeling coaching and involved in being part of that coaching culture. Now, sometimes that's done through individual coaching for them, and sometimes a coaching group is going to make a lot of sense because for them, they love the idea of that mastermind group, working with their peers, etc. So there are a number of different pieces involved to get the engagement at the top. Now, in terms of all levels, one of the big mistakes we often make is we forget to spread that out. We forgot, okay, gee, the leadership is now buying into this and saying, yes, we want this. How effectively is it being communicated out in the organization? And how effectively are you engaging people at all levels in the organization to involve themselves in the coaching culture? So very, very significant. Yes, of course, it takes training. And chances are you've seen some of the research. One of the studies that I think is very powerful is a lot of companies say, yes, we want this coaching culture. It's the newest, greatest, biggest thing, whatever it is. And then they believe in creating internal programs, which is actually the least effective way of getting the result. Because the people that are internal, developing internal programs, are doing it based on what they already know, which is what you already have. So if you want to create change, yes, to get it, the research shows, get the external training for it. Teach people how to do it because coaching competencies are very, very different. I had a conversation with someone recently, and I love this example. Think about it this way. If I'm a doctor and I want to be a dentist, I have a lot of transferable skills. I'm thinking, well, gosh, I'm already a doctor. Do I really have to go to dental school? Well, you tell me. Do you want a doctor putting a crown in your mouth? They don't have any training for that. They have transferable skills. It is a very different skill. So of course training makes sense if we're going to have that coaching culture and we want it for the long term. Next, consistency. Yeah, we're all aware of that. We get excited about something on the front end, put out all this great stuff, and then people go right back to their old habits and patterns and routines, and that initial excitement is lost and gone. It was a wasted effort. So it's consistently maintaining it over the long term. So let's dig in. What are the quotes here? First off, at all levels, my responsibility is leadership. And the minute I get negative, that is going to have an influence on my team. That's a fabulous awareness and so completely true. You've all seen somebody who was told something is wrong, something negative, and it crushed them. And the more people hear it, the more it drags them down. So yes, as leaders, it is incredibly significant that we are positive, we are proactive, solution focused. And guess what? That's coaching. Positive, proactive, solution focus, that we empower people so that they find the answers and they follow through. That's huge. And it's actually pretty nice when you think about it as a manager. It means really putting others in charge, and it frees you up to do what you're really there to do. So it makes a lot of sense once you get it. All right, next, the training side of it. So I love this. This is off the International Coach Federation website. Would you go to an accountant who wasn't certified? Or to a doctor who didn't pledge to uphold the Hippocratic Oath? Why would you partner with a life or business coach who hasn't been trained in the coaching process or doesn't abide by a code of standards? So yes, coaching is a young profession, technically, legally. We don't have to get any training. Anybody can hang out a shingle, call themselves a coach. My dog can hang out a shingle and call herself a coach. And you know what, everyone? She's a great listener. So if you want to hire her, she's in business. Does she really know? And guess what? That happens a lot in coaching. Or we start the process and fail to continue it. So coaching is going through what accounting went through, what becoming a doctor as a professional went through years ago. So it has moved to the point where the gold standard is the International Coach Federation. So it used to be you just said, I'm an accountant and started being an accountant. Now, you go through training, you get certified. Used to be you just said, I'm a doctor. Now you go to med school, you pass, there's an exam process, etc. So all professions go through this process. Coaching is there. We are either going to successfully self-regulate or government's going to regulate us. And successful self-regulation means the International Coach Federation. They've got the code of ethics. They require 60 hours of training. They've got the core competencies for coaches. And for us as professionals, joining means we are accountable to the code of ethics. So it absolutely makes sense. It applies to other professions and it applies to us as coaches. Now, consistency. And I love this, this comment. I learned teaching from teachers. I learned golf from golfers. Check this out. I learned winning from coaches. So it goes back to the concept of coaches are accountability partners. Accountability partners for acknowledging progress and success along the way, accountability partners for follow through. And it's about creating that long-term sustainable level of inspiration, engagement, motivation, where it really does involve people at all levels over time. And that consistency being in place, happening, supporting people, that's what's going to make the difference. So when you say, yeah, I want to have a coaching culture, plan it, yes, very intentionally from the beginning, lay your groundwork, set your foundation, involve people at all levels, engage people at all levels, and plan your follow through. How do you plan follow through for a coaching culture? Well, think about things. Yes, of course you want to model it. It goes back to the concept of all levels being involved. The training, initial training, yeah, absolutely, and ongoing training. The ICF updated their code of ethics last summer, and one of the significant changes is that they literally added in the code of ethics a commitment to ongoing training, to lifelong learning and education. It is an ongoing process. And think also as an organization, what are the opportunities to recognize people for applying coaching in the workplace? What are the opportunities for rewarding that? How do you want to share the stories and the examples and maintain that engagement over the long term? Plan the consistency over time, just as you plan the launch of a new effort. Okay, we have a few short minutes left, so of course want to share with you some resources that are available to you. First off, the International Coach Federation. They are a nonprofit professional membership organization. Do check out their website. There's a lot of great information there, and you can learn about training, you can learn about credentialing, you can learn about coaching on this website. So great resource for you. Of course, at the Center for Coaching Certification, we're very interested in being a resource for you. What does that mean? It means we offer training, we offer mentor coaching, etc. And on top of that, through our sister organization, the Center for Coaching Solutions, we want to be a resource, the resource for coaching results. So what does that mean? That means we offer consulting services. Ironically, when we talk about coaching, we offer consulting to help people start and run coaching programs. We, through the Center for Coaching Certification, provide the training for that. And of course, we have coaches to provide coaching for your executive level leadership, for the people who are launching coaching programs, wherever it's appropriate for you. So that's a resource for you. In addition to that, we have a multitude of other resources available. So our blog, we have new articles there every week. Do come check us out. We publish a book once a year called Coaching Perspectives. Each book is completely unique set of authors, and the expertise offered is absolutely amazing. So some great content in the different books. We also, of course, offer these free webinars each month, and we're available if you want a quick phone call, ask a question, send an email, get some information, whatever it is for you on a check-in basis. In terms of outsourcing, we do offer the consulting, the training, and the coaching services. So what do you do now? What's the next step? First off, I do want to offer a free consultation. If that is useful to you, helpful to you, let us know. We'll get that scheduled for you. For yourself, choose. There are so many resources available. Check them out. Choose what makes sense. Get intentional and plan your process. Implement your strategy and achieve the results. So thank you, each and every one of you, for being here. Definitely appreciate your time and participation. We have completed our 30-minute time. So I am going to pause and invite additional questions. I think we incorporated a lot of those questions as we went along. What else do you want to know? Please either raise your hand or type it into the question panel. And in the meantime, I am getting the comments, so thank you. I appreciate it as well. Glad to hear that it was helpful to you. And yes, this will be available on our YouTube channel. So as we do each time we offer one of these, you will receive an email and we will give you a link to the recording on the YouTube channel so you can come back and check it out again. And of course, hopefully share it and pass it on. So thank you for all the thank yous. Definitely appreciate that. Seems we are good to go, ready to move on. So everybody have a fabulous day and a fabulous weekend. Do let us know how we can be of service. Thank you.